In Excel, it can be a real challenge to get your spreadsheet to print properly, and that is because we have 1,048,576 rows and over 16,000 columns. So let's look at what your printing options are. First of all, I'm sitting in the sheet called Products in your file Excel 1, and I want to go into Print Preview. Now to go to Print Preview, I do have a button on my Quick Access toolbar that we added earlier called Print Preview, and that's really handy. It fails to mention the shortcut key combination, which is actually Control F2 in all Microsoft programs if you want to go to Print Preview. Or you can go to File and Print, and that will throw you into Print Preview as well. Now when I go into Print Preview, I can clearly see down here that this is a 4-page document if I was to print it as it sits now. I can see page 1 is a complete page, and if I use these little triangles here, I can go to the next page, page 2, and so I can see that's half a page long. So page 1 is a full page 2 is half a page 3 is a couple of columns too wide, and page 4 is the extra 2 columns and a little bit down. So this is printing on 4 pages, and I can move between the pages simply using these triangles. I can also go to the bottom right corner and I can zoom in using the far button, and I can clearly therefore read what's going to be printed, and I can zoom out just by clicking this button in the bottom right corner. The button in front of it allows me to see margins and allows me to adjust those margins simply by dragging. By making my margins smaller, I can fit more on a page, and by making them narrower, just by dragging them up and down. I can also turn the margins off just by unclicking that button, Show Margins. So what I'd like to do now, I know you've got options here, but I'd like to go into Page Setup because this particular option here has everything you possibly need. I'll go into Page Setup, and the first thing I want to tackle is orientation. At the moment, my spreadsheet is going to print in portrait, and that is upright. If I choose the option Landscape and I click OK, my print preview shows me that it will now print in landscape. And instead of 4 pages, I've now got 3 pages. Page 1, page 2, and page 3 has just got a little bit on it. And going back to page 1. If I go back to Page Setup, I can choose to put it back to portrait if I wish. But I'm going to leave it, well no, actually I will put it on portrait because now I want to tackle scaling. I would like my document to be in portrait, and I'd like it to fit on 1 page. Now I can play with the percentage here, but it's much more time effective to just choose the option Fit To. And I'll say that I want it to fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall, and the paper size is A4. So I'll click OK. Immediately my 4-page document is now 1 page. It's portrait, and it's 1 page wide by 1 page tall. And if I was to go to the bottom right corner and click Zoom to Page, it's readable. So for some people this might be sufficient. For others they might think that the print is too small. So I'll zoom back out again, and I'll go back to Page Setup. If it's too small on 1 page, maybe I'll try to put it on 2 pages. So I'll go Landscape, and I'll say Fit to 1 page wide by 2 pages tall, and leave it on A4 paper size, and OK. I can zoom in and see that it's clearly readable, and zoom out. And I'm fully occupying 2 pages. So instead of 4 pages, I'm using half the number of pages, or printing half the number of pages in 2. And instead of printing 1 page, which is unreadable, for some, this is quite readable. So I'll go back to Page Setup, and also it tells me here it took 93% of the normal size to get it to fit 1 page wide by 2 pages tall in landscape. Paper size is here, so if you have the luxury of an A3 printer, you could change the paper size in this drop down here. You could change the DPI, which is dots per inch, but I probably wouldn't. By lowering the DPI, you're lowering the quality of the printout. The lower the number, the less dots per inch. So I'm going to stick with these settings. If I click margins, I have the option to increase or decrease the margins. And I might decrease the top margin to 2 centimeters, decrease the right margin to 2, decrease the top and decrease the left. And so this may allow me to fit more on a page. I can also increase the header and increase the footer area. So I might take that to 1.5 and I have to type it, and maybe make this 1.5. And we're about to look at headers and footers shortly, so hopefully that will be much more clearer shortly. Also, I want to sort of balance the data on the page, and at the moment it's hanging too much to the left. So I'm going to tick this option to center horizontally, and you can see it's much more balanced now in the center of the page. If I untick it and retick it, you can clearly see. And I can also center it vertically. If I then click OK, you'll see that it's centered horizontally and vertically. You can also see my margins are a little smaller, and you can also see that the text is closer now to the data in my header and in my footer. So a header is text that appears at the head of every page, and in this case it's the name of the sheet, Products. It appears at the top of page 1 and at the top of page 2. You can also see that the page numbering is at the foot of page 2 and at the foot of page 1. So now we need to look at headers and footers. So I'm going to go back into page setup. I'm actually going to go to my margins, and I'm actually going to start also by reducing the header and footer so that the text is not so close to the data. And I'll take it down to 1 and take it down to 1, and I'll just check that first. So I'll go OK, and that's a bit better. See how it's sort of like a little bit further away from the data. So having sorted out my header and my footer spacing, I'm going back to page setup and I'm going to header/footer. What you can do is customize what appears at the head of every page. You've got some choices in here, but I'm actually going to go into the custom header button. At the head of every page, I would like to see in the left head of every page my name. So I'm going to ask you to type your name. So I'll type Kathy Barker. I'll highlight what I've typed, and using this button with an A on it, you can format any text in the headers and footers in terms of font and font size, etc. So I want my name to be bold, I'd like it to be blue, and I'd like it to be 11, and OK. So the purpose of the button with an A on it is to format any text. Now in the head center of each page, I don't want to see anything, so I'm going to drag over what's currently in this section and delete it with my delete key. And I'll click in the right section. In the right section, I'd like to see the current date and time that it was printed. So I'm going to go printed, I'll type printed and a colon, and then a space. And then I'm going to click this button with the 7 on it. This button inserts the date. And it's a bit of code. The reason it's a bit of code is I don't want to type the date. If I type the date, it'll never change. If I use the button, it means that this date will change and give me the current date it was printed. I'll then press the space bar, even though it doesn't look like it's done it, and I'll click this button with a little clock on it, and that's the time. If I click that button, and then I'll click OK, you can start to see something being put together up here at the top. And I'll go OK again. What we have now in the head left of each page will be Kathy Barker, and in the head right of every page it says printed and the date and the time. And this date and time will change because we didn't actually type it. So if I've got 2 printouts in front of me, I'll be able to tell by the top right corner which printout is the most recent by the date and time. Let's go back into page setup. Let's go back to header/footer, and let's create a custom footer. I'm going to drag over what's in the centered section and press my delete key. And in the left section, I'm going to type the word page and press the space bar. This button here is what numbers each page. So I'll click this button, and that puts a piece of code, an actual field, that will actually tell me the name of each page, or the number of each page, sorry. Then I'll press space, I'll type of, and I'll press space. This button here is the total number of pages. So if I print out this report and it falls all over the floor, I'll know what order to put the pages back into, and I'll know if I'm missing a page. So I click this button here. In the right section, I'd like to see the name of the file and where it's saved. So I've got a choice of two buttons. This one here with the green Excel logo actually just shows you the name of the file but doesn't tell you where it's saved. This button here will explain where the file, what the file is called and where it's saved. So I'm going to click that button. I'll then press enter, and on the next line down I want to show the name of the sheet. So I'll click this button and I'll go OK and I'll go OK. And what we have here, if I zoom in the lower left we have the page 2 of 2, and if I go to the first page, page 1 of 2. So this has numbered the pages and the total number of pages in the document. If I then go to the right, I can see the name of the sheet is called Products, the name of the file is called Excel1, and I can see where I've actually stored it. It's the file and the path. So if the sheet gets renamed or the file gets saved with a different name and in a different location, those fields will automatically update. And over here, if the number of pages should change, then these will automatically update as well. So those buttons are very useful on page setup and under header/footer. Under the Sheet tab in page setup, you get the option to say whether you do or don't want to print grid lines, whether you want to print just in black and white, whether you want to print just draft quality, which is no bold, italics, no formatting, and whether you want to print the row or column headings. So you may want to turn those things off and on and just have a look at print preview to see what they mean. So I'll go OK. You can also interact with things here. For example, you can say that you want to print just one side or print both sides. You can say if you want to collate them, 1, 2, 3, or pages 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, if you're printing more than one copy, and that's up here. You can say if you want landscape or portrait. You can say if you want A4 or any other type of paper size. You can also change the margins to normal, wide, or narrow, or custom, and you can also control your scaling in here. At the end of the day, you'll print the active sheet or the entire workbook or just the table, or if you had just a range selected, you might only print a certain range of cells. You don't have to print the entire sheet. And you can print certain pages. So if I want to print just page 2 to page 2, then I would stipulate this here, or pages 1 to 2. You then choose the printer that you want to print to, because you may have more than one, and then you'll hit the print button, and what you see here in print preview will be exactly what prints. To get out of print preview, we simply hit this back button or press the escape key, and you're taken back to your Excel file.